You don't have to say anything funny. We'll figure it out. No pressure.
I'm not funny.
Neither am I, according to my kids.
Well, dad jokes, right?
That's okay. That might be the cold opener right there. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, sure.
What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am super stoked to have you. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That would be amazing. This week's episode is brought to you by Mento Design Academy, where it's not just about learning UX design, it's about discovering your unique path in it. And their approach is different. It's personal. It's tailored to you. They don't just teach. They inspire students to use their passions as a driving force in their learning. And this is something that I've experienced firsthand as a mentor. I've been fortunate enough to guide students who are exploring different concepts that they are truly passionate about. It's not just about following a curriculum. It's about shaping that curriculum around what excites each student. And their approach emphasizes not just knowledge, but a deep love for the discipline. And seeing my mentees grow, apply their passions, and craft portfolios that are genuinely them, it's hands down been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. So if you're looking for a UX course that is as unique as you are, make sure to check out Mento Design Academy. And I've got a special offer for you. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Mento and use the promo code BeyondUX200 to get $200 off the course when you sign up. So join me at Mento and let your passions lead your learning journey. This week's audiobook recommendation is from our guest today, Wendy Nyx, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Big Magic is like a pep talk for your creative side. In the book, Gilbert convinces us to let go of fear and perfectionism and just dive into whatever makes us happy. It's a fun read that encourages us to embrace our inner artists, even if we're just doodling in a notebook or dancing in the living room, which I personally really enjoy doing. It's all about finding the joy in creating new things. So head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/audible trial to start your free trial and download Big Magic completely free and help support the show in the process. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin for all their support. And if you want to join those fine folks and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month. That is less than $1 an episode. And if you do that, you'll get some sweet, sweet perks for your support. And of course, if you think this show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. All right, now I got that out of the way. I am so excited to have a guest on today, Wendy Nyx, who was introduced to me by a mutual friend, Janil Dalal from the Design MBA podcast. If you haven't listened to his podcast, please go check that out because it's a fantastic show. Wendy Nyx is the co-founder and creative partner at Primitive Spark, a design studio that specializes in creating research-informed digital products and experiences. Wendy started out her career as a designer in Argentina before settling in Los Angeles. She takes a collaborative approach to design, guiding cross-disciplinary teams and clients towards sophisticated, practical, and intuitive human-centered design solutions. And she is constantly learning not only from books and the interweb, but also from those who she helps unfold. Wendy, welcome to the show. It is so good to have you on. How's it going?
Hi, Jeremy. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much. So I'm really excited to chat with you today. We had a little talk a couple weeks back. I can't remember exactly when. And I actually should have recorded that talk.
Right.
Even an awesome episode by itself. We probably talked for like almost an hour. Wendy, I'm really excited to talk to you today about finding your core values, bringing your authentic self to work, and just making sure that you're just happy doing the things that you do every day. But before we get into that, I know I read that little bio a second ago, but tell us a little bit about you. How'd you get into this business? And how did you end up on this show today?
Oh, man.
The roundabout way.
That's a long, I was thinking about that one time. I was like, oh my God, I've lived like so many lives already. But yeah, you talk a little bit about my Argentina side there. I grew up in Argentina.
Cool. Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I didn't come to the States until after college.
Wow, you don't have an accent that I can detect at least.
Yeah, so it's sometimes I say specific words and they sound kind of funny and nobody tells me because they like it. So I just keep that. But yeah, so I was born here. and my parents went back to Argentina when I was 6.
Okay.
They are from Argentina, and so I grew up over there. But I think that the language patterns got set when I was little, and even though I didn't speak much English when I was in Argentina, when I came back, it all just like magically came back. And so I think that's why I don't have much of an accent, or I have a good ear for languages, which is another part. But yeah, so I was at a graphic design, or I studied graphic design, and I was at a graphic design studio all through my college years. So it was kind of a fun time for me of learning and doing at the same time. And then when I came to the States, everything was like computer based and whatnot, which wasn't in Argentina. So I had to kind of like relearn the whole business basically by doing it in computers. And then I guess I liked it. I don't know, but I ended up being 100% digital. So that's how I ended up here. And now I have this great little studio with my business partner. I don't know, we've been working together for so many years. We started working together at the LA Times, where I was the new media design
we
director.
used to call it new media.
Yeah, it was the new media department. And that's where we did the first LATimes.com. So Chris and I were in that team. And we've been working together ever since. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I used to work in advertising, and we used to call it like traditional design.
That's right.
Traditional design and new media, it's so funny. And now I can't even imagine a world where we don't have any kind of digital thing. It's just so funny to think about traditional versus new, and I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, and our kids, they've grown up with this existing since the beginning, right? And
it's
I'm
amazing.
Like, I remember just like spending hours and hours and hours in the library, just like learning everything I could because there was no other way.
Yeah, I don't know, kids, it's just amazing. And they pick it up too so fast. Like just stuff that it took me years to, figure out. I can't imagine. I don't know. I remember taking typing in high school on a typewriter, dating myself here, but it was just clacking away on an actual typewriter, and nowadays I imagine kindergartners are probably coming in sometimes already knowing how to type on a keyboard. It's just amazing.
You're talking about high school. I did in Argentina. I was in the dictatorship years. We did this underground magazine.
Oh, wow.
And it was all, actually, that's what got me into graphic design, because that is fascinating. We were doing this underground magazine, and everything was, like you said, type it up, on typewriters, doing illustrations by hand. And then we had to, send it to print. But the magazine ended up in the hands of a graphic designer that had this little studio. And he hired me after high school to work there while I was going to design school. So that's how I actually started, because of that little magazine we were doing in high school. So yeah.
That is fascinating. Actually, I could talk to you for hours about that. So that was Pinochet? Is that?
No, was Pinochet was in Chile.
Chile, okay.
In Argentina, it was like a triumvirate, whatever they call it, with 3 people.
They had a bunch of several.
Yeah,
right,
it was the Junta, it was called. And, I hope I don't get any cease and desist messages now, but we certainly did. We certainly did when we were doing the magazine.
Yeah, wow. So that's crazy. And you could have, I imagine, gone to jail as a political prisoner, I would assume, if you got caught in high school.
Or disappeared. They disappeared people.
Disappeared, right? Just disappeared, yeah.
Yeah,
Jesus.
There was no real official jail or anything. Constitution wasn't valid, because it was martial law.
God, so yeah. Sure. And you grew up, and that's how you ended up getting into UX design. So everything we talk about today just seems like less so inconsequential from what you experienced. That's amazing. Wow, we didn't get a chance to talk about that last time we spoke. That's that alone is fascinating. So let me ask you this: you ended up getting into graphic design, and a lot of folks of a certain age, myself included, there wasn't really UX design to get into in the early 2000s. I'm not sure how long you've been doing this, but how did you end up in UX specifically, or in software, coming from that graphic design background?
Yeah, so like I said, I was in the States after, living my primitive life in Argentina. And when I was taking design classes here at UCLA Extension, one of the classes was this portfolio and internship class. And so they helped you put your portfolio together and help you get internships. And I ended up in an internship at the LA Times where they were first starting to do that online, or it was like on Prodigy, putting the newspaper on Prodigy, which is an online system for all of you that don't know. It was CompuServe, Prodigy, and America Online.
That's all you got online.
Talking about dating ourselves here, Jeremy.
Oh my God.
So anyway,
so this is really funny. We were watching a movie the other day, and with my kids, and it was like a kids movie. And they did the modem noise, from the early internet. And they were like, "Oh, that's a silly sounding noise." It's just like they had no idea. They just laughed because they thought it was like the robot was messing up and like, "Oh, that's silly noise." I'm like, guys, he's connecting to the internet. Like that's what he's doing. Come on.
That's right.
Anyway,
that's right. Really funny. The handshake. Yeah, well, you got mail. Yeah.
Yep.
The handshake. So anyways, out of the internship, during my internship, that's the funny story. They asked me to design the interface for the newspaper on this Prodigy system because they wanted to sell it to the publisher of the LA Times as a project, internally, right? So my boss was like, we have to do a really good job here because we need to, sell this project internally to put the newspaper online. And I was like, okay. And so when we were all done with the design, she's like, okay, the meeting is on this date, da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, are you going to be able to be there? And I was like, oh, excuse me? I mean, these were all like the top level people. And I'm like the intern, right? and she's like, yeah, I wanted to present your design to the group. And I was like, what? Me? So anyway, but that's how I got the job. Right?
Yeah.
Because then when they got the project, they said, okay, well, nobody's better qualified than you to actually run the project, on the design side. And so, I was able to build my team and everything. And obviously, if I hadn't had the experience that I had in Argentina, where I was running groups and, like teams of people, and I had a lot of experience with managing. And if it wouldn't have been for that, I wouldn't have gotten the job. But,
And I imagine a lot less pressure than trying to avoid the junta and getting disappeared and stuff back in Argentina.
For sure.
If I had to guess. So that's really cool. Yeah, and back in the day, correct me if I'm wrong, but Prodigy, AOL, they had their own pages that you could design and build inside of their little network. It wasn't like a browser, like website you would travel to from it, right? So the Prodigy stuff was like
Prodigy had their own proprietary graphic system, and the files were called naplip, and they were 16 colors. And so we had to draw everything, and there were like no photos when we started. Then they started introducing photos, but it was just really primitive. Yeah.
Kids today, they don't know how good they got it. So, well, that's fascinating. So I'm as I'm listening to this story, kind of a lot of the stuff that we talked about last time about finding yourself and your value and bringing your core values to work. It sounds like a lot of this influenced that mindset, and so I want to dig into that a little bit. One of the things I was really excited to have you come on and talk about was this idea of how we show up at work. And our core values and the things that we present to the workplace, how we show up at work. And I'm curious, like I want to kind of think about how that evolved for you. As I'm hearing a lot of your background and stuff, it kind of makes a lot of sense to me. It sort of, it's not a surprise, I guess, that this is like kind of like your perspective now. But I'm curious, like some of the stuff you've been through. How'd you come to this idea of just the importance of having these core values and bringing this to work as your authentic self?
Yeah, actually, it's a great way of looking at it. I don't think I ever thought about it that way, to tell you the truth.
Really?
Because, I am who I am. And I do, like one of my core values is this authenticity, integrity, honesty, whatever you want to call it, of just showing up the way I am. And I think that did start way back when we were saying, well, this stuff is not okay, that these things are happening is not okay. And we are going to create a vehicle to say these things, right? And like you said, it wasn't about, can you keep your job or not? It was almost like life and death. But when you're a teenager, you don't understand the dangers of that, right? Yeah, exactly. And like I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, we were absolutely nuts doing what we did.
I imagine your parents didn't know. Your parents probably had no idea. I assume, right?
They had an idea. Obviously, they did have an idea. My dad actually was one of the collaborators for he contributed to like poems and stuff to the magazine, which was really amazing for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
But, I don't think that they really understood the edge that we were, or the boundary that we were crossing there. But going back to what you were saying about, how what is important to you, and how you bring that with you. Like I had this thought one time, I think it was after we talked, this idea of bringing your values to work day. It's like, what is
like having a presentation kind of.
Yeah, or something, like I'm doing this because this is really aligned with who I am and what my values are. And this is how I'm showing up. And, people may like it or not, right? Because sometimes when we're showing up at work with our authentic self, it might ruffle some feathers for people, or they might say, no, you have to be quiet. Don't, rock the boat, all of these things. But it's getting in the way of you actually being who you are, people seeing that. Because when you are who you really are, it's magnetic. Like you will attract these people that are in line, that are aligned with you and with your values. And, and it works both ways, right? Because you can say, okay, how do I realize, or how do I find out what my values are? Because you have them, you just maybe never put the words together to identify them.
Yeah.
And so a good way of going about that is like, what are the things that you do that you're really proud of, right? Because if you're proud of, it's because you have that alignment with your values, right? And you can start saying, oh, okay, well, I'm really proud of how I treat people. I'm kind, I'm honest, I am empathetic. Okay, there, you have a few values there. I'm proud of my designs, because they're very detailed, or they're very, okay, so, attention to detail, or, focus, creativity, inspiration, like you get a kick out of getting inspiration from places and then bring it into your designs, whatever it is. That's the one way of just kind of going towards like identifying your values. The other one is like what you admire in others. My business partner, Chris, I think that he's just like one of the kindest, funniest, humble people I know, right? And that really just like inspires me. I admire that, and I want to be more like him, right? So those can be some aspirational values. And so that's why I was saying that it's kind of magnetic, because, when he is like that, I want to be like that. I want to be around him, right? I want to work with him. So, it's that kind of magnetism. And then I think that another part that also can show us our values is like when we are upset or angry about something, it's because there are these boundaries that we have that are being crossed. And our boundaries are made out of these values that we have for ourselves, So if respect is one of my values and someone is walking all over me, I'm going to get mad about that. And it's because this boundary is being crossed. And so you can say, okay, this is really important to me. That's how these things come to life, or come to light, I should say. And then, you can say, well, this is really important to me. I'm being disrespected at work every single day. I am done with that. I am not going to take it anymore. And I'm not saying, just like start throwing things, right? I mean, let's we have to be mature about how we go about things, but having an uncomfortable conversation with someone and saying, look, I don't know really how to talk about this. And I'm going to fumble through this conversation, but I really need to talk to you about this because I really can't continue working this way. It's really affecting my work, my productivity, my focus, whatever it is, and that's kind of how you can, go about one, bringing your values to work in a very authentic and just showing up. And then the other one is when these things are being presented to you that are not working for you. And you say, well, my values are really clear to me. This is what I need. This is what I'm not getting. This is what I can do about it. And so being in that empowered place to do something about that.
You mentioned something I want to kind of go back to a second, is the bring your authentic self to work day. It reminds me of something. I have a buddy who works at Chewy and Chewy.com. And one of the things that they do every time somebody comes on board, they ask them to fill out this sort of, cheat sheet, like a personality cheat sheet, right? It's like, how do you like to communicate? How do you like to work? What's the best times for you to work? You're morning person, evening person, whatever. Do you like IMs? Do you like email? Do you like to turn your camera on? Like things like that. They might do like a personality test. I can't remember. They, put their Enneagram or their, high C, low, high D, or whatever it is. And then that way they have like a repository of all these people. So as you on board, you can read through everybody else's and you can kind of see like, oh, Wendy likes this, Jeremy likes that. And so, like if I'm going to reach out to Wendy, make sure I she likes phone calls. So like, let me make sure I call her on the phone or do a huddle or something versus a Slack message.
Right.
So anyway, kind of made me think of that, but I love that idea though, like having a day where you just sort of celebrate everyone's uniqueness,
Yeah.
And their authenticity. I really like that idea.
Yeah. I've read about that before too, of companies that do that. And they actually, for places where you're in person, they actually have them on their wall or their cubicle or whatever, so that when people approach them, they can actually, read the few things that, how do you like being approached, or how you like being communicated to, or what are your interests and things like that, so that people can know more about you, even if they haven't run into you in the kitchen or whatever.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, having like a little like a mini poster, like I just imagine like a little like a baseball card or something with your stats,
like a little persona
you can hand it out
card.
to people, it's kind of, exactly, a persona card. That makes more, that's probably more apt analogy for this audience. One of the things I'm kind of curious about, and I'm just thinking maybe I'm projecting here, but for people who work at a company for a long time, I feel like over time you can kind of get beat down. You have these ideas, these sort of values, and you bring them up and you get shot down, and people kind of say like, we're not doing that, or, oh, don't worry about that. And I think over time you sort of get desensitized. It's desensitized, right? Maybe, I don't want to say forget, but you sort of stop pushing those values so much, and you start to kind of let them slip a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious from your perspective, if that's happened to you, and two, when that does happen, how do you deal with that? Do you have thoughts on how you go about making sure that doesn't happen?
There's plenty of companies out there. Just leave. No, I mean, which is, like if an environment is really toxic and there is no room for you to bring your authentic self to work over and over and over and over, it might just not be the right place for you.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
I mean, I know it's hard to think that in this environment where jobs are really hard to come by, that you would say, no, I'm leaving. And, I can't. I mean, I have friends that have been looking for jobs for months and months and months, and they're really talented people. So I know that it's not easy to leave a place. And that's why I was thinking about, or I was talking before about this thing about having uncomfortable conversations. And when that is, you don't see that that's going to go anywhere or whatever. I think that if the environment is such that you're feeling that way, I'm sure there are other people that are feeling that way as well. I'm not saying that, you just have to be miserable together and whatever. But I think that, we are designers. We are people that come up with solutions all the time. So, you know, getting together with other people and saying, just doing a design thinking exercise on it, and saying, okay, what's our problem? These are our problems. What are the things that, we can do about it? We can just talk to people. We can, make a list of things that are getting in the way. And then, just find opportunities. What are the opportunities for change? Because if you're feeling that way, the likelihood of other people feeling the same way is high. And getting together with these people and saying, okay, what solutions can we bring to the table? Because I don't know of any companies that they don't want to make things better in some way.
Yeah, nobody's like, we're going to have the worst culture ever. He's just really excited. That's their goal, is to have the worst culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if you can come up with some ideas as a group of saying, look, we have these issues here. Here are some solutions. And if you don't like these solutions, can we come to the table and come up with solutions together? Because I think that people get very discouraged when they try to go about it by themselves.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was thinking about too was like, you're in a long-term relationship, and when you first start dating somebody, you do all kinds of fun stuff. You go out, you have fun, you do adventurous things, and then slowly over the years, the spark just sort of, fades a little bit, and then suddenly, maybe 10 years later, you're just in bed, you're both looking at your phone, you're not even having a conversation, one word to each other, and you're just like
texting to each other.
Wait a minute, we used to be fun. We used to do fun stuff. What do we do? What happened to us? And I just kind of think about that in, when you're young and you're just idealistic and you have these values. And I think about people who've been in their career for a long time, and you get to the point where you forgot maybe what those values were, and you're just kind of, maybe sleepwalking, maybe you're just like kind of going through the motions.
Sure.
And I'm just curious, like, is that ever been some, like, did you ever like, cause I'm thinking about your background, like being this like revolutionary, sticking it to the man. And then suddenly you're just sitting there and you're like, I'm writing this other stupid email. And like, what happened? I used to be a revolutionary. I'm just curious, like, how do you keep that spark alive? You know what I mean? How do you keep that spark alive?
Well, there's two things that come to mind around that. One, and it kind of relates to the one thing that you were talking about before, which is having the little persona card, which is like at Primitive Spark, once a year, we do an advance, which is kind of like a retreat, but it's an advance because we don't retreat, we go forward.
Oh, I love that.
So during our advance, we do what it's called the whole person exercise, and everybody does it, right? And so it's kind of like that persona card, but deeper. It's really about what is it that moves you? What are the challenges that you have and you want people's help on? What are the things that you really want to do that you haven't done? And, you have like these personal goals around, et cetera. And so that is kind of like a checkpoint for yourself, So you're saying, okay, yeah, I've been in this job, industry, whatever, for a long time. That is a way of keeping yourself current with your values and kind of like saying, okay, I have these values. What am I doing? What behaviors am I doing to be in line with those values? Like if creativity is one of my values, and I haven't done anything creative in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. Okay, it might not be one of their values anymore because you're really not doing anything towards that, right? So I think it's that your constant reassessment of what your values are, what you're doing towards your values, and is that bringing you any joy? Like really taking it into your own hands to doing that, so that's like one part of it. The other part is, you're asking me personally, well, this is one of the reasons why we started, Primitive Spark and the other agencies that I had before that is, that we wanted to create a space which was, politics free, that we worked with people that had similar values, including our clients, right? Because if we work with someone and, because we're an agency, right? We have clients. If we work with clients that are not aligned with our values, like we're just seeing that it's just not going to work, or we did a project and it wasn't really aligned for us, then we have to part ways, because it doesn't mean that they're good or bad. It just means that there is no true alignment. And for us to be, I'm not saying happy, because happy is, I don't know, I have this thing about happy. But if there isn't fulfillment in the relationship that you have with your coworkers, with your company, within your company, or with clients, or however the structure is with the people that you work with every day, then, there is a problem. You're in the wrong place. You're not doing what you're meant to do. I truly believe that if you are aligned with your purpose, and I actually, purpose is kind of a big word. And I've struggled many years with saying, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And the thing is that people think about purpose as like, oh, I have to go to, some third world country and, help people that are hungry and poor and whatever. And that's my purpose. It doesn't have to be that, right? It has to be aligned with your values. Your values is what points at your purpose. So, I can be doing my purpose here with you talking right now, right? And my purpose can be like, how do I talk to my cats? I mean, my purpose is all around me, because it is based on my values, and it is based on how I show up for people and those that I have relationships with. In relationships, I mean, friends, family, co-workers, clients, whatever it is. And I think that is really what we need to remember. And you're saying, about spouses, right? And I think that it's that continuous conversation and communication with them about what is it that we're doing that is not aligned with the things that we set out to, and if those have to change over time, then it changes over time. That's what this, when you were talking about my bio thing about unfolding, right? We talk a lot about growth, but growth means that we're not complete, that we're not there. It's like this thing that we're always have to become. And I agree that we are always becoming, but I think that it's more related to unfolding who we truly are all the time.
Like unwrapping and finding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because we are whole the way that we are. We are not missing anything. Right. We just need to discover and have that curiosity to be able to see all the gold and all the light that we have inside of us. And if we can just bring all that gold and all that light with us, then nothing is going to stop you, because people see that. It is magnetic.
I like that adjective, magnetic. One of the things that I just want to call out, I like that you brought up is, you guys, you go off and you do your advance. I love that. It's not a retreat advance. So you go off and you do this, but it's intentional. And I think a lot of people, they end up in that sort of state, sitting and texting their spouse or just going through the motions, sleepwalking, not because they ever wanted to, but it's more because they got there. They just ended up there. And then you think, how on earth did we get here? How did I get here? I used to be, different. I used to have more passion. And I think that's interesting, because a lot of companies don't do that activity. Mm-hmm. Smaller. I worked in an agency, a small agency, and we did, but it was like 10 of us, so it was a lot easier to go and book, book a few rooms at a fancy hotel for a weekend. But a lot of like people that end up working at big companies and stuff, this is never something that anyone does. And over time, you kind of get to the point where you're never really thinking about it anymore. You're just going through the motions and just doing every day. And it's not necessarily, it's interesting because I'm just thinking about how would you do that in a large company? I think it's just sort of on you to go and take a break 6 months, every year, whenever it is, and think about these things and do it for yourself. Because if your company's not going to help you do it, nobody's going to do it if you don't do it yourself, So it's kind of interesting having like a one-person retreat, but just, going off and thinking about this, detach from the world for a weekend if you can, it might be hard if you have kids and stuff, but just sort of thinking about that and being intentional about looking at your current state and say, is this where I wanted to be a year ago? Am I here? And did I actually do what I thought I wanted to do? Did I get there? Did I achieve the things? Did I, hold true to my values,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's kind of interesting though, that idea.
I think that if your company doesn't do it, so if you are a leader of any size team at your company, so if you're, if you have like a group of 3 designers, 10 designers, whatever it is, or if you're, have some developers or, whoever you are, because, companies, they're big, right? They have like, 2,000 people, but it gets broken down to smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller teams,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So there are these atomic groups.
I like that. Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah.
Right. And so if you have a few designers or whatever it is, a small group, you can do that, and I know that a lot of companies is like, well, it's not part of the, projects, or it's not a part of, listen, we do a lot of things that are maybe not within, take an hour. And it doesn't take that long, right? To say, okay, I'm going to give you this homework, it's this sheet of paper that says, okay, think about this, right? And then on Friday, we're going to have a coffee morning or whatever of an hour and a half. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about what's important. And we're going to talk about, what it's part of mentoring. It's part of, how do you keep your teams happy? This is part of it. Getting to know them at a personal level.
Yeah.
It is part of the job. It's not a mystery. Just getting to know the people that are around you is one of the most important things to keep, to make a group productive. I am telling you, it helps, because if I know that the person in my team is going to go to the doctor and they're concerned about what the doctor is going to say, because it's like some kind of, thing, and they have a deadline, I can say, hey, I know that you're going through this thing. You might not be able to make that deadline. Do you need help for that? I can tell you that person is going to give 200% next week or whenever it is, because you did that for them. So this is important. We are people, it helps.
I can't remember who did this study.
Google.
I want to say it was Google. It was the high-performing teams. It was at Google, yeah. And they did that study. For those who aren't aware, obviously you are, but for everybody who's not aware, they did this study that they found the highest performing teams were not the teams with the smartest people or the most talented, quote unquote talented people. It was the teams who got along best. The teams who liked each other outperformed the ones full of, really smart, talented people who didn't play well together.
They didn't know each other.
And so,
right?
And so those people that built those relationships, they worked well together. They solved problems faster. They were able to collaborate and get things done.
Why?
And
why? Because they were authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
They were bringing their whole selves to work. And I know it's a very vulnerable, especially if the environment is not set up that way, right? And you're the lonely designer with all these thoughts. Oh, I think that it would be better if we did it this way. Well, start from there. Start with your fellow designers, and when, your manager, your leader, whatever, they see that you're, like you're this kick-ass team, they're going to get curious and they're going to say, what's going on here? How come you guys suddenly you just like started like giving, everything you have to this thing? Well, you can say, well, we actually started talking to each other. We know that, so-and-so has a cat and, whatever. It's important.
This reminds me, and I'm thinking back to my experience and some of the things that you're talking about. And I work for a giant company. I work for GE, which is, huge multinational conglomerate. And I'm thinking back to before COVID, I worked on a team that I love my current team. My current team is amazing. But this team that I worked on till the day that I die, I am convinced will be the best team I've ever worked with. We worked so incredibly well together. We got along really well. And I'm going to place all the blame on that in a good way on our product manager, Brittany. She had an amazing idea to bring the team together. We took 2 days off work and we somehow managed to convince our leadership to make that okay. We took 2 days and we figured out what our team's principles were and our core principles and our core values. And I am convinced that conversation and having those values made us a better team going forward.
Absolutely.
Because one, it helped us work together, but two, it helped us judge every candidate coming through the door on those principles.
Yes.
And what we would do is we actually had them review the principles and what do you think about this? And we would hear their insights, and the people who had, who didn't really care that much, we're like, you know what, it's not for you. If they cared about other things, then they probably weren't the people for us. But the people who found those, who resonated with those principles were the ones that we tended to hire, regardless of if they were the A students or the won the awards or went to some Ivy League school or something. These were the people, that's what we tended to judge them on. And I feel like that helped us become a better team. And we, everything got ripped apart when COVID happened and we, everybody got laid off and we went our separate ways. But, that was, to me, one of the best teams I've worked on. And I think it's because of those 2 days that we spent in a room together, to be honest, doing exactly what it sounds like you're doing, the retreat essentially. And we thought about it and we were really intentional going forward about it.
Yes.
And we promoted it. And, you mentioned a second ago, I want to call this out, but, it's the culture thing. It's the psychological safety, building that into the culture of the team so that everybody can embrace these things and they can push back, when they feel something isn't going right without the fear of being reprimanded or punished or in some way because they spoke up.
Yeah.
To your point, though, this was a gigantic corporation with thousands of employees, but our small team of 50 people were able to do this, and I think that's amazing.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was talking about when I was saying that, we find alignment within our team, with our clients, the people that we work with. We have a lot of like development companies and such that are partners to us. And it's the same thing, if we see that while we're working with them, our values align, then guess what? Anytime we get a project, we're going to keep working with them, right? Because it's a no-brainer. It's almost like you have this secret code, right? That you can,
like a cheat code.
It's like a cheat code, and it's like you can go so much faster. This is the other thing, right? When you start creating these kinds of relationships with people, you can be so much more efficient. It's because you develop that kind of shortcut, it's amazing.
Yeah. And it's sort of like an unspoken language a little bit, right?
That's right.
It's like you just kind of know what they're going to do and know what they're going to think. And it's amazing when you see this in action. I feel it's sort of one of those things because like when it happens, it's amazing and it's beautiful.
Yes.
But nothing ever lasts. Nothing ever like people leave, they go off, they do their own thing, and eventually over time things change. And when you lose it though, it's just like heartbreaking. And then you want it so badly to be on your current team, but it's, for one reason or another, it's just not the same way.
But you can create it.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you can always create it again, can't you?
See, this is the thing. We've had people, that left Primo Spark for one reason or another. And we have these stories of people going to these other places, sometimes big companies, and they would say, you know what? The big company, whatever. Our team started implementing the things that I learned at Primo Spark, and our team was kick-ass. And it's because we just created our own thing. And then, everybody wanted to work with us because they saw how good we were, how good our work was, how we worked together. And everybody was like, how is it that group is so much better than everybody else? So I think that when you are in a situation like that and you learn all of these skills, you just take them to your new place and you create because this is the thing. Whoever you have the power. You have more power than you think. You can be that person that becomes a leader. You don't have to be a manager to be a leader. You're a leader when you lead by example, right? When you can model these behaviors to others and they see it and they want to be more like that. And, you can see where you're not in alignment. Well, that's what you want to change. Those are the things that you want to change.
This is something I like to tell people quite a bit when they're looking for work is you have more power than you think.
Yes.
You don't need to accept the offer simply because they gave it. So I want to ask you something about job hunting and finding that right company. Because as we just said, it's a culture thing. That culture either exists or it doesn't, right? There's some culture there. Either it's a good culture or a bad culture.
Everybody has a culture.
As a job seeker, how do you figure out what that culture is before you accept the offer? Because what you don't want to do is get the offer and then realize it was bad. Are there some techniques or tips or tricks to investigate that culture before you accept the offer so you know what you're getting into?
Well, there's several things you can do. One, you can see through LinkedIn, for example, if you know anybody in that company. So that's one place to start. Or even if you have like a second level connection of some sort, you can say, hey, Jeremy, I see that you know someone at Chewy. Can you put me in touch with them so that I can, kind of check out what they're. Another way that I found was pretty interesting for me, like you're talking about Chewy. And, the personality of a company comes across on how they present themselves online, right? If they're true to their brand, right? Because brand is not just the logo or the color palette or, what typeface they use, right? Their brand holds their mission and their values. And if they're true to their mission and their brand, it's going to come across on their products, on their website. Obviously, they can lie about it, and that's kind of hard. But I have to say that, when Chewy has like some videos, of their products or, you can just like watch that and say, okay, how many chili peppers do they have on their content? That kind of shows something. Or how do they approach, go into their website and see what they support. Every like big companies have, organizations they support, how much effort do they put into making that known? Do they have scholarships for kids? Oh, okay, that might be as caring. So, that's another way. And then, you can just like dig into their history too, go online, see what, news stories are there about, what kind of press releases they have, because whatever is on the news about them, it's usually something that, can give you either red flags or, or kind of say, oh man, I really like this company. I really want, or what their products, if it's a product like Headspace, let's say, you're like, well, I like what they do. I am interested in meditation, okay. Or, you look at another company, whatever it is, and they might just do a product that they're out to just constantly get people. And it's like, well, that's just not aligned with my values.
I have a hard time believing that Headspace wouldn't promote mental health at work, right?
They do.
You got to believe that some place like that, they're going to promote mental health.
Sure.
Obviously, well, some people may, but most people probably wouldn't want to work for a company that was caught clubbing baby seals in the Arctic or something, right? I mean, these are things you can obviously tell. One of the things that I try to tell people a lot too is, and this is something someone asked me not long ago, was something about they were afraid to put something on their portfolio, their resume, because they thought it wouldn't get them to the job. And my advice to them was like, would you want to work for that place if you knew that they wouldn't hire you because of it?
Easy. Yeah.
Like if you were proud of this thing and you went and they offered you a job, but you knew that they wouldn't offer you the job if you kept doing that thing, would you still want to work there? And that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is that you have so much power. Like you mentioned this exactly, but you have so much more power over these companies than you realize. I mean, at the very least, you have the power to just walk away.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't have to accept a job. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to bend over backwards to impress these people. Bring your authentic self to work, obviously, but bring your authentic self to an interview.
Absolutely.
You know, wear whatever clothes you want to wear, wear your hair however you want to go, talk however you want to talk.
Yes.
And if that place doesn't hire you because of that, imagine working there.
Exactly.
You know? Imagine faking it in an interview and then getting a job, and how much stress that must put on you as you're working there, having to hide those things, you know? So I remember somebody recently, I can't remember who it was, they posted about a recruiter didn't send a job offer to a perfectly qualified candidate because they didn't wear a suit to the interview. And I'm just thinking, like, good on them. Like, fine. Like, would that person have enjoyed working there if they had to wear a suit every day but didn't think it was worth wearing to an interview? That's probably not a very good fit for personality wise, right?
Exactly.
So I mean, they dodged a bullet. I mean, that's fine. Like, the company can do that. I think it's silly. I think they probably wasted the talent. But if that's the culture of the company, that person probably would have been happy to reject that offer anyway. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's something too a lot of people don't realize is, you know, that culture can come through in those interviews. You know, when you ask them a question, you ask them a hard question in an interview, because as an interviewee, you should be asking questions back. And a lot of people don't think about this, but when you ask them a hard question, that hiring panel, and they dismiss it, or they come back with some kind of, like, you know, short answer, or they try to, you know, argue with you about something, you could probably get a good sense for what that would be like if you asked a hard question in a meeting, you know?
Yeah.
And
totally.
so I think you have a lot more power to figure those things out. You know, you mentioned LinkedIn. I think that's a really great one. I recommend that all the time, is going out and talking to people who work there now, but also used to work there. You know, you left. Why'd you leave?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, what happened? And LinkedIn is great because you can search for former employees of a company. So you can actually go and target former employees specifically. And, you know, so they could say, oh my God, it was the most toxic environment ever. I hated it, you know.
Right.
You know, and or they might say, oh, you know, I had to move and I wish I would have never left. It's an amazing place. Let me introduce you to the people that work there.
Exactly.
You know, so doing that investigation, I think is so important. But I love that what you said, though. You've got so much more power than you think. You don't have to stay in a toxic environment. You don't have to accept a job offer. Obviously, right now, job market's kind of weird, and maybe, you know, you got to weigh that a little bit. Like, I need to pay my rent versus, you know, what's my mental health work for a few months while I keep looking for another job if I take this job. But yeah, I love that idea, though. You just, you know, you have more power. I think you said this last time, the company doesn't own you.
They really don't. They really don't.
And a lot of people feel they do.
Yeah.
You know? That's sad.
The other thing I wanted to say, you know, like, there's a lot of things that we talk about, and, you know, the way that we say these things, sometimes I think about, you know, I'm an introvert, and for people that are quiet and introverted, I think it's very challenging to do these things, you know, to show up, because their authentic self is being that quiet person, right? And being kind of like, you know, observant and, you know, kind of reserved. And so what are we saying? Are we saying that they have to become this person that is outgoing and sharing and this and that? It doesn't have to be like that. Even if you're quiet and you're introverted, you can find ways, if you think that it's important to you, right? If you think that working at Headspace is really important to you, and you want to have that kind of experience of working in a team like that at that company, there are things that you might have to look at in a different way, and saying, okay, just because I'm introverted and I'm quiet and I'm observant, what are the things, or maybe some of those things, how can you present them as valuable to the company or to the team? Like, because I am quiet and observant, I can actually see what's going on in a meeting without even saying anything. And after the meeting, I can communicate my insights to you in a in a separate document or, in a chat or whatever it is. Like, how can you use those things as superpowers? My superpower is being an observant person. Okay.
I love that. Yeah.
Okay. That means that you can see things that other people don't see. Okay. How can you show that value to the people in your team? And so it's just like, because sometimes I know that there's this tendency of people saying that you have to be extroverted, you have to be out there, you have to show up, you have to be communicative, and all of these things that are super hard for people that are introverted. And so look at what are the things that are your superpowers and how you can bring them as a benefit to your team. And I assure you that you're going to bring things that other people are not thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's something too. A lot of people, again, like you have the power, you have more power than you think. That goes like so many things. It's not just like accepting a job or quitting a company. I mean, the power to change the minds, to influence people, to, push for processes that you think, at certain points you may hit a brick wall and you may hit a dead end and you may not be able to do those things, but at least you tried.
Yes.
Don't assume you just can't make the changes. And I just love that. I think that's just such an amazing thing to think about for sure. We talked a lot about finding your values, bringing those values to work, being authentic. Anything else you feel junior designers, career shifters, somebody like that needs to know about values and bringing their authentic self to work?
Yes, I have a couple of things actually. One is about that clarity of what you want and what you need. So if you are someone that is just starting or changing jobs, whatever it is, I think that having that clarity of what your goals are, what you want to accomplish, what you want to be when you grow up. And I'm not saying this from an age perspective, but more of from a career perspective, right? There are people that want to go up the ladder, right? They want to say, okay, I'm starting as a junior designer, when I become a designer, senior designer, design director, whatever, right? But there are other people that they just want to go deep and just become the best designer they can be. They don't really want to go up the ladder. They don't want to be the chief creative officer. They just want to be really good at their craft. And to be good at your craft, if that is the clarity that you found, that that's what you want to do, then going broader in understanding as much as you can about the other disciplines that you play with, right? Because the best teams are the ones that can collaborate in a very deep way. And for you to collaborate, like if I'm collaborating with a developer and I'm a really good designer, the more I know about how they go about doing their job is going to create this relationship between the two of you. They say, as a developer, they're going to go the extra mile to try to figure out that design that you're trying to implement, even if it's hard, because you are trying to understand, you're having a conversation with them, you're initiating this collaboration with them. And so I think that, anyway, I'm going to deep onto that, but having this clarity about what you want and where, what's the end game, even if it changes, it doesn't matter if it changes later, right? But what is that? Having that clarity, it helps you. And sometimes you have to go at a roundabout way to getting there. I've done plenty of those. Like nothing is a straight line. I get that. But, if you have that up there, you can, even if you're going in a circular kind of way, you'll get there. And then the other thing that I was thinking was important is, and it was more about when we were talking about how do you go about it when the job just doesn't feel good, or you've been there for a long time and things are just like not gelling for you. There's something that I learned recently that is about the difference between being responsible for something and responsible to others. When you're being responsible, when you feel like you're responsible for things, it's a heavy feeling. It's like you're carrying things for other people. you feel tired, you feel anxious, you feel fearful, liable, all of these things. And you're really worried about, performance details, circumstances, this and that. But when you're responsible to other people, then you show up in a different way. You can show empathy, you can show comfort, you can be sensitive, you can listen to people. And then, the way that if you're taking on things or if you're just being responsible for the things that you're doing, then you're feeling more relaxed. It's a lighter kind of feeling. Like you can actually see the solutions. You can, relate to people in a different way. You can see people clearer because you are clear about what you're responsible for. And if you don't know what you're supposed to be responsible for, that's a clear one. And that's another one, right? That when you're feeling like your manager is not happy with what you're doing or whatever it is, just have a clarifying meeting.
I love that. Yeah.
Saying, I think that my job is about this, 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 and this. Is that right?
Setting expectations.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Is that right? What kind of expectations do you have for me? Because if you have that clarity, then you don't have to be responsible for other people, and you can just be responsible for yourself to other people with what you bring to the table. And you know that what you're bringing to the table is what you're expected to bring, and not like all of this other fantasy stuff that you might be bringing in, the stories that you're making, So that's another important part.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, and that's the setting expectations, I think, is really important, especially for low maturity teams where there's a lot of product managers or stakeholders who don't really understand how to work with UX designers. And that can become a very toxic environment if you don't take active measures to try to keep it from, getting worse. Obviously, with UX maturity, there's a certain level, again, just like the other things, you might hit a brick wall and there might be people who just will not change. But I like to assume positive intent and assume people don't always do things maliciously. So using that mindset, I like to have these one-on-ones, like a lot of people, they just ignore one-on-ones, or they treat one-on-ones like a manager subordinate status update, where to me, though, one-on-ones are things you should be having with your entire team.
Yeah.
Product
absolutely.
managers, stakeholders, whoever. And those are great, especially when you first join a team and start working together. Setting expectations up front. This is what I think my role is. This is what I would like to deliver. This is how I think I can help you, help the product, help the business, whatever it is. And you have that conversation together. What are your expectations for what I would do for you or help you, or how would my role work with you? And you get them to answer the same questions back about their role. And I think that's a really great way to start off a relationship. A lot of times people come in with, especially junior designers, butting heads with stakeholders and product managers all the time. I mean, look at Figma Config a couple of weeks ago, where everybody cheered when they announced that, Airbnb was getting rid of their product management function. That's
that
shameful to me, right? I mean, that's shameful. I mean, that's so sad.
Were you there?
No, but I heard about it.
Okay, yeah, I was there.
Everybody was talking about it on social media, but yeah, that whole, thing to me is shameful. What does it say about the culture of these places where a lot of these designers who applauded that work? What is their relationship like with their product team?
Yeah.
I bet it's terrible. I bet they don't get along at all, and I bet they're just constantly fighting with each other, and they probably hate it. And we're partners. We shouldn't be fighting, and so that just to me, again, goes back to everything we've been talking about with what are our values? Are our values to push our agenda on another team? Or our values to collaborate and work together and build the best thing together, that we can?
Yeah. And it's also about respect.
I don't know. Setting expectations is so important. Yeah.
It's also about respect, because if there is a cultural setting of respect for the different disciplines, in some places, maybe designers are not being taken into consideration, and they're being brought in, maybe it's a developer-led kind of environment, right? And they say, oh, we developed this, now you have to make it look pretty, right? Or research is not valued, or our product management is not valued, right? I think that is something that is more of a company culture responsibility to make sure that all of the disciplines respect each other. Because as soon as there is this hierarchy placement, like product is at the top and they, whatever they say goes, okay, what is informed? How do they get informed by, whatever they say go? Where does it come from? Does it come from the
It's a guess,
C-suite?
usually.
Well,
It's a
where
guess.
does the guest come from, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Where does the guest come from? That's right. The C-suite,
someone,
probably, yeah, the executives,
someone is
yeah, the leadership
guessing,
team.
obviously, especially if the, UXR is very immature, yeah, there's going to be plenty of guesses. But I think that respect, in showing that, no, we're not going to allow that here is important, because if you have respect, then all of these other things start working better. And I think that to tell you the truth, I think at Airbnb, what happened was that there was an imbalance, and that's why that happened. And so, and he didn't really get rid of product management, right?
Right. I know that's the other thing too. They misunderstood. He combined the two separate product marketing
It
and
was
product management.
more realigning what product managers did and not having them, have like all of this power over everything else, because it has to be something that is more balanced. And so I think balance and respect is very important in every company. If not, you're going to have some serious problems.
We've been talking for a little while. I want to be conscious of your time. I don't want to take too much of your time. I got some questions I want to ask you, but before we do that, tell everybody out there listening, where can they find you? Where can they get more information about you and Primitive Spark and all that stuff? Give all your stuff a little shout out.
Okay. Well, if you just go to LinkedIn, Wendy Nyx, you can find me in NYX. And primitivespark.com is our agency. And I am also on ADP list if you want to schedule some time for mentoring. So yeah, that's it.
All right, Wendy. Awesome. Well, I will include all that stuff in the show notes so everybody can find you and get in touch. But I've got a few questions here that I like to ask all my guests, so all the listeners out there can get to know my guests a little bit better. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. What is your favorite non-design book?
Well, you talked already about the Big Magic one. Gifts of Imperfection from Brené Brown. That one is, I kind of go back to that one all the time. It has like these guideposts, and I don't know, it just like helps me get back in touch with myself when I feel a little bit lost.
I love Brené Brown too. Yeah, she's great, and it's funny. Well, not funny, interesting. Maybe this is a connection. But the product manager, Brittany, that I was talking about, that organized that event where we all kind of got together and thought about our core values. She was a huge Brené Brown fan, and I had never heard of Brené Brown until she mentioned it to me like 5 or 6 years ago. So anyway, it's amazing. I go on like almost my whole life without knowing who Brené Brown was. But anyway, I don't know. Maybe that's an interesting thing, coincidence. I don't know if that's causation, correlation.
Yeah,
who knows?
got all of her books too.
All right. What is your favorite non-design podcast?
Yeah, that would be Your Undivided Attention. It's from the Center for Humane Technology. I know it's not specifically about the design, but it is about our responsibility towards what we're creating. But, they always have like these very interesting guests. Like this week they had Esther Patel, that she usually talks about relationships and things like that. And so I was like, well, this is a different one. And it was really interesting. Actually, she talked a lot about things that I've been thinking about. And so she calls it the other AI, our artificial intimacy, and how we are creating all of these things online that are kind of parallels to real life, but they're not really. And so we're creating all these new mental models around, friends and followers and things like that are just like not real. And it's not creating real community. And it's just like not very good for us as humans.
That reminds me of something recently I read. Meta was working on like chat bots to like comment on your posts on Facebook and stuff. And it just seems Like that to me strikes me like artificial intimacy, like fake friends. I just, it's so bizarre to me. Like I don't want a fake interaction. Yep. It's like, I'm just doing it for likes because like the AI bot liked it. It just seems so bizarre to me. I don't know. That kind of, I can't stand that stuff. It's so weird. All right. What is your favorite vacation spot?
See, that one's tricky, right? Because I am kind of a person that's like, do I feel like a beach kind of relaxed vacation, or do I feel like a,
yeah, it depends what you're in the mood for.
City, museums, culture, kind of thing. So I like places that have kind of like the mix of things, so that I can, just like go into nature, but also, have like this more cultural kind of a thing. So yeah, I like places that have a mix that I can do both.
I love that. Yeah, I like going somewhere where I can have a sit in a coffee shop and like hang out.
Oh yeah, those are nice.
That's like my ideal vacation. Just like a new coffee shop with something new and interesting to look at across the street. Or
I'm going to this dream vacation in October, which is a yoga retreat in Cambodia. And then, I'm going to go and spend some time in Bali, which I've been before, and I just absolutely love it. So that's just going to be a dream come true.
That's awesome. I've never been to Bali, but it looks beautiful on the movies that I've seen.
I love Bali. So it's just looks nice. Spiritual. It looks great in pictures. And it's just, it's good for the soul.
That's awesome. It's a great place to do an advance in Bali.
Yeah.
If you're going to. All right. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
Yes. My sketchbook.
Sketchbook, pen and paper.
I love I have like all these different pens and pencils and color pencils and watercolors and whatnot. And that's one of the things that I miss about the digital space, that I spend all of this time on the computer and I really I'm a very tactile kind of a person working with my hands.
Yeah, I love that. One thing I miss about advertising were the paper shows, where you go and get free lunch and all the paper samples. I used to love. I'd have like a library of paper samples.
Yes.
My wife is actually a graphic designer too, and we would go to the paper shows together, and we would each get a Nina book, and like, ooh, look at this milk paper,
I know. I'm a geek for paper too.
So here's a question. All right, for your sketchbook, is it blank, lined, or dot graph? What do you like?
Okay, so I have several. So if it's true sketchy, plain.
I guess you wouldn't use lines. Yeah. Plain. Okay.
My journals, I like having small kind of lines, just like not the big spaced out ones, but like really, because I write small and so that works for me. But yeah, so I have I have my personal journal, and that one is lined, but I do draw on that one quite a bit. I have my sketchbook, which is plain, and then I have my kind of work notebook, which is also lined, but I also draw on that one when they're like small things that I want to do.
Doodles during meetings.
Yeah, but when I want to go out more, then I do my sketchbook. So yeah,
there you go. I'm a dot graph fan myself. I've got like all these little field notebooks.
Yeah.
Well, that one.
Yeah, I like those.
Anyway, I got all these little field notebooks with the dot paper, because it's like it's not super intrusive with the lines. I can sort of write at like sort of horizontally, but you can still draw over it, and it doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, I have a couple of those actually. I have one here, a spiral one that I use sometimes, but I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with the dotted ones.
There you go. All right. Awesome, Wendy. All right, cool. So we're going to put all the links so everybody can find you on ADP List, LinkedIn, and Primitive Spark. We'll put that in the show notes. Really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much for all your insights. This is super valuable. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Jeremy. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that people support you so that you can keep doing this, because it is amazing for our UX community. Thank you for doing that.
Right on. Absolutely. I appreciate that. So like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Awesome, Wendy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, all right, y'all. That is it for Wendy and me for today. I hope we helped shed a little bit of light on finding your core values, finding the right team and making sure that you fit and those things all mesh together and you have one big happy family at work. It's hard to find, but when you do find it, it's an amazing thing. But I'm curious, have you found that at work? Have you been able to find that team that just fits perfectly with your core values? I'm curious how you did it. How'd you find it? Did you find them or did you find each other? To just get lucky. Let me know what you think on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate a 5-star review. That would help me out so much more than you know. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, why don't you tell them about it? That would be fantastic. And if you want to help keep the show independent and ad-free, check out all those Patreon sponsorship packages at beyonduxdesign.com/support. You can join Chris, Siraquine, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin by supporting the show for as little as $3 a month. And there are some awesome perks like that badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker. You can get a shout on the show every week. And there's even a package to meet with me for 30 minutes every month. Don't forget to head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/audible trial to download Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Sign up for a free 30-day Audible trial. Cancel it anytime, and the book is yours to keep forever. And in case you forgot, I've partnered with audible.com, so anytime you sign up for a free trial, you'll help support the show. There's no obligation. You can cancel it at any time. The audiobook is yours to keep forever. So get a free audiobook on me and help support the show. And remember, if you're looking for a UX course that is as unique as you are, do yourself a favor and check out Mento Design Academy. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Mento and use the promo code BeyondUX200 for $200 off the course. So join me at Mento and let your passions lead your learning journey. Remember to sign up for the newsletter and check out all the past episodes along with all the show notes at beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX than design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all. But yeah, don't tell my boss. He'll never hear this. That definitely won't be the cold open.
No.